Hello everyone, and welcome to this video where I'm going to guide you through how to successfully complete the final week, or I should say 2 weeks of this course. Only one more week of class to go after Thanksgiving break, and then final exam after that during final exams week. So what I've done is I've basically completed a list of the things that you should be doing in order to prepare for that final exam that's going to be coming. And I will post this on Canvas. You'll see this on Canvas with the video. Now, first thing and foremost, there's no class that Wednesday before Thanksgiving break. This video will basically give you the chance to prepare going into that break. And once you come out of that Thanksgiving break, that week before final exams, you won't just be dazed and thinking, gee, I wonder how I should study for the final. You'll have a plan that last week to know exactly what to study, when to study, how to study. So this video should help you get prepared for that rather than just showing up Monday after Thanksgiving and kind of twiddling your thumbs going, I don't know what to do, but I know I have a final exam in a week. So the first thing that you should be doing is coming up with a strategy, coming up with a game plan. And the first thing that I have on my list is print the syllabus schedule and determine which concepts or sections you are comfortable with and which concepts / sections you are uncomfortable with. And what I mean by that is in another Word document, I pulled up the syllabus that you can just get on Canvas, and it's the last page of the syllabus that we call in the math department the pacing schedule. So again, if you go on Canvas and actually look at the syllabus, it's just the very last page. That's really the only thing you need to concern yourself with, because it breaks down every section and which concepts or topics are covered in every single section. And I say print it, you don't have to print it. You can maybe have it off to the side in a Word file, kind of like I have. And when you look at that Word file, that's my email, you can see where I pulled it up. When you look at that Word file, what you can do is mark off which sections you are comfortable with and which you are not. And you can highlight them or you can slash them, cross them out as you go. But let's say section 2.3, I'm comfortable with because I've gone back and I know how to solve linear equations. I've looked back at the study guide 1, I've looked back at exam 1, I see that I did very well. I can redo those problems still. It's as if I almost don't have to study those problems because I'm just so comfortable with them, I'm so good with them. You can cross them out or bold them or put an asterisk, whatever you need to do, and say, look, I'm not going to focus a lot of time here because I know that I have those concepts down. 2.4, problem solving. Okay, I looked at some of those problems and I was okay with those. I think I'll strike those out. I see percent and mixture problems. I have no idea how to do a mixture problem, and I got it wrong on the first test. And I never really went back and got strong in that concept of solving a mixture problem. So I'm not going to cross it out. Maybe I'll highlight it and say, I need to study this and I need to study that soon. There's no point in me putting that off because it may take me a long time to get that concept down. And the final exam is cumulative, so everything you see here is fair game. If you're strong in factoring, I would not spend a lot of time factoring. I would just make sure you still can factor and be confident with those problems that you did in the study guide and the old exams that had the factoring problems. If you know you can't factor, boy, you better highlight these sections. If you know factoring by grouping and factoring trinomials was tough for you, then yeah, you better highlight those. Factoring binomials, solving quadratic equations by factoring, yeah, I better highlight those. And by doing this, you're telling yourself, when you're done eating all that turkey and you got to get back into the classroom, as soon as you get back into the classroom, you're going to want to be in go mode to just study. You're not going to want to sit there and guess, hey, I see Mr. Schaller reviewing for the final exam, and I don't even know if I know that or not. You want to know what you do know, and you want to know what you don't know. The stuff that you do know, you don't have to study so hard. The stuff that you don't know, you really need to study because you now have 1 week left to gain the concepts of what we've covered over 16 weeks. You cannot learn all of this 16 weeks worth of stuff in 1 week. You have to be realistic about yourself, about where you're going to spend your time studying and where you're not going to spend your time studying. So that's how I recommend sort of separating the studying so it doesn't seem so overwhelming. Look at the concepts that you're comfortable with and know that you're comfortable with them. Look at the concepts you're uncomfortable with. Know and be honest with yourself that you are uncomfortable with them. If you find yourself highlighting a lot of stuff, then you know you need to study a lot more than you thought you did. But if you find yourself only highlighting a few things and saying, I may or may not be comfortable with it, that means I'm uncomfortable, I better go study it. You may go back and look at it and realize right away you know the concept, you just forgot you knew the concept, you needed a problem or two to practice. That's great, you may need minimum time studying. But it helps you separate into what you need to focus on and what you don't need to focus on. And it's broken down by concept and section, so you know exactly where to go look in terms of where do I find problems like that? What exam was that on? Well, I know that test 3 covered everything from chapter 5 and 6, so I better go back and look at my old test 3. I better go back and look at my old study guide 3, and I hand you back the study guides, I hand you back the tests. I may have a couple laying on my desk. For those that maybe weren't there when I handed them back, I will obviously try and make the best attempt to give them to you. I'll bring them to the class next week and try and return those to you. If not, feel free, please come to my office and get them. Someone who does not collect a past exam or a past study guide is not a good sign, because that just basically tells me you don't want to learn that concept. So when you get that question wrong on the final exam, I have no sympathy for you. But for someone who has all their old exams and brings them and asks questions about them and asks questions about old study guide questions, those are the people that, to me, really show that they are studying, and they are studying hard, and they really want to get those questions correctly. And those students eventually do get most of those concepts and most of those questions correct because they realize if they put in that time and effort, it will pay off. So the second thing that you want to do is, I don't want to move that around. The second thing that you want to do is make a plan to actually study for that final exam. Don't just spend the last week but leading up to the final exam doing nothing, and then all of a sudden on Sunday evening say, oh yeah, that's right, my final exam is Monday. It's Sunday. I have less than 24 hours to study for a final exam that is worth 200 points. That's going to be kind of rough if I don't study. I better study for the next 8 hours straight and lose a bunch of sleep and then try and take an exam after I've lost a bunch of sleep. Don't do that to yourself. Come up with a plan. It's always better to study 1 hour every day. And, depending on when you decide to start studying, you should give yourself at least 1 week and at least an hour a day for that week to just do problems and stay limber and stay loose. It's like running a marathon. You don't want to wait till the day before the marathon to try to run a marathon for the first time in your life. Oh, I need to run a marathon on Monday. I better run a marathon today before tomorrow so that I can see if I can do it. You'll be so tired, so exhausted, your muscles will hurt. You won't be able to run that marathon tomorrow because you've tried to overwhelm yourself today. Whereas if you jog a few miles every day and you do that leading up to running that marathon, you are building those muscles and you're getting that consistent practice. By the time you go to run that marathon, it'll be something that you are capable of doing. Same thing in math. Math is a language. You cannot try to learn 16 weeks of vocabulary in one day. But if you break it down into a weekly structure, you can take it in strides. You can do little chunks every day and slowly build that up. So don't cram. I know the ARC, the Academic Resource Center, has what they call a final exam cram the Sunday before final exam week. It's all false hopes. I mean, yes, you're going to want to study on Sunday, but you do not want to spend 12, 13, 14 hours straight trying to shove it into your brain just to do what they call a brain dump the following day. It may work for some of the lower level courses or entry level courses, or for certain electives. But if you're going on to the next math class, it is going to show all those gaps and all those holes in your knowledge. If you cram them in there today and dump them out tomorrow, guess what? A week later, you're not going to remember any of it. And if you take 3 weeks off, 4 weeks off, and then jump into the spring semester, trust me, just because you crammed for one Sunday does not mean you remember anything about 1033. So it's going to show when you go into that first exam in the spring in college algebra. So study, practice, be comfortable, give yourself the time to be successful, give yourself the time to study. If you're one of those people that highlighted a lot, 1 hour is just a bare minimum recommendation. If you're getting a perfect 100 in the class, you still may want to study an hour a day. If you're struggling to pass this final exam because you struggle to pass all the exams in the course because a lot of those concepts are just not solid, you might want to study 3 or 4 hours every day. And if you're doing that for a week straight, there is no way you can do that in one day. There's literally just not enough hours in one day to study for 27 hours straight. You're going to burn yourself out before you even get to the exam. A really great way to study, something I've kind of already mentioned, is rework the old study guides, because those old study guides are questions from a big, massive pool of exam questions. I take those exam questions, or I take those study guide questions, and I change some numbers to turn them into exam questions. And then essentially what I do is I look at my exam questions and I change some numbers to make them final exam questions. So by working through those study guides that you have the answers for, you can then use those questions and concepts to then rework old exams and see what those questions are like, and you'll notice they're very similar to the study guide questions. Sometimes I get students that say, well, the study guide was completely different from the exam, and I literally hold up the study guide in the exam and I say, question number 3 on the study guide is exactly question number 1 on the exam. You can't tell me they're completely different. They're the exact same problem. This is a 3, this is a 4. Conceptually, mathematically, there's nothing different. It's just a different number so that you're not copy and pasting blindly. Once you've done that, then I would say start focusing on looking for more practice problems, and that's where you want to go to the final exam study guide. You do not have to turn in the final exam study guide, but it is there on Canvas, just as if the final exam is another exam. That final exam study guide is pretty lengthy, and this is what I go to, and I practice problems from this final exam study guide during that week of review before the final exam. So I will do some of these questions in class after we get back from Thanksgiving break. There's no way I can do all of them. I mean, I could do all of them, but I'd be rushing through them so fast with you that you wouldn't be getting any help with them. So what I do is I try and do, a good handful of these final exam study guide questions, meaning, possibly best case scenario, we might be able to get through every even problem, or vice versa, every odd problem. So maybe half of these questions we would get through in those 2 class sections on Monday and Wednesday. But there's no way I'm going to sit here and work every single problem with you. I don't want to be in that classroom for 9 hours straight on a Monday, and then another 8 or 9 hours on a Wednesday just doing these, because then it's not helping you. Then I'm just doing the problem for you, and I'm not doing your final exam for you. So you need to be honest with yourself and find the problems that you can do, find the problems you can't do, start asking questions about the problems you can't do. Take them to the ARC, come to me during office hours, say, hey, Mr. Schaller, can you please do any one of these from 105 to 108? I didn't get them right on the last test, and I can't get them now on this study guide. Can you please work 1 or maybe 2 of these problems in the review session? Yeah, absolutely. And then that leaves you some that you can do on your own. So great way, email, maybe I should just close the email, don't even need it anymore. Great way to study would be, again, look at those sections and then try and line up problems from the study guides and from the old exams with those sections and say, okay, I'm really bad at factoring, and I found a bunch of old problems on factoring in the study guides and in the old exams or on the final exam study guide, and I'll ask some questions about those, or I'll focus on those and I'll practice those. That way you know exactly what you're struggling with and exactly what you're comfortable with, and it just helps you focus on the things you need to be studying. You don't necessarily need to study everything at this point, because you should know some stuff pretty well. Once you're done, coming up with that plan and coming up with a good schedule to actually study, tell yourself and be honest, I'm going to study 2 hours on Monday, 1 hour on Tuesday. I'm going to study 2 hours on Wednesday. I'm going to study 1 hour on Thursday, and I'll take Friday off. I won't study, but I'll give myself 2 sessions of studying on Saturday. I'll study in the morning Saturday for an hour. I'll study, come up with a good schedule and stick to that schedule. Don't cram. Don't wait till the last minute. Make sure you've got all your materials. Collect your old study guides, collect your old exams, print that final exam study guide, and just carry it with you wherever you go for a week. What you don't want to do is complete that final exam review on the MyLab Math. This does count as a homework grade. Basically, it's like a homework section, essentially. And what that is, oh, there's my math lab. I had it pulled up. I don't know why I closed it. When you go on to the My Math Lab website, all you have to worry about is that last little bit of final exam review. It is lined up so that it feels almost just like the final exam feels. Like I said, it does count as basically a homework grade. And when you click on it, you'll notice that it's due that Sunday before the final exam. It's due Sunday at midnight. So don't come take the final exam on Monday and then say, hey, can you reopen the review? No, you've finished. The course is over. You're done with the final exam. There is absolutely 0 point that you should be going back and practicing studying. You're done. The exam is turned in. You can do no more. You'll see that there's 44 questions to it. 47 questions. I didn't scroll down all the way. There are 47 questions to it, which is very, very close to the final exam. The final exam is actually 41 questions. We'll talk about that more in a second. But it's lined up very close to the final exam. If you can get through this final exam review and get 100 on it, no sweat, then you'll probably do absolutely fine on the final exam. But if you struggle with this final exam review and it takes you hours upon hours upon hours because you have to go back and look up concepts, then you are not ready for that final exam. You do not have hours upon hours upon hours and a notebook and old notes and old study guides during the final exam. All you have during the final exam is a pencil and a calculator. If you don't know it, you don't know it. So you have to be careful about that. That's why I give you this final exam review, and I do make it for points. I make you do it so that it hopefully catches some people in the net and says, hey, you need to snap out of it. Look at the score you got. You're not ready to sit for a final exam yet. You need to rework these questions, and you need to put hours in to study longer. Problem is, some people do this Sunday until, not until like 10 o'clock at night, and then they realize far too late, oh my gosh, I don't remember half this stuff. So don't be that student. Make sure you're studying early, study often, get this out of the way. You're going to want to work through this during the week leading up to the final exam. When we're doing those reviews in class, you're going to want to be completing this. Do not save this until the weekend before the final exam. You've got other final exams to worry about. You don't want to start realizing you're not ready for the final exam the weekend before the final exam. You want to start realizing you're not ready for the final exam a week before the final exam or earlier. Maybe the weekend during Thanksgiving break, you might want to start poking in and looking at some of these questions and seeing what's involved, just to give you an idea of, okay, there is some stuff I know, but there's also some stuff I don't know. How do I gauge what I know and what I don't know? Go print this out and come up with a plan. Print this syllabus out, come up with a plan to study. That way, that week leading up to the final exam, at least you have a game plan, you have a set path, and you can just trot along that path and keep chipping away at more and more concepts. That is so much better than just being completely blind and just randomly studying stuff that you don't know. Because then when you go to sit down with the final exam, you're going to randomly just go, I don't know what section this is. I don't know what concept this is. Whereas someone who had a path and a plan and connected those concepts to those sections and those types of problems, they'll sit down at the final exam and they'll go, oh, I remember I did this on Study Guide 2. Oh, I remember this type of problem. Oh, I remember I practiced 3 or 4 of these. Oh, I remember how to do this. And it just flows so much more naturally because you've prepared so well for it. The process goes easier. So once you're done with that, last thing, again, please come to those final exam reviews that we're going to do that week leading up to the final exam. Both those days, we'll just take the time to work through that final exam study guide as best we can and do as many problems as we can. I will answer as many questions as we can. The main difference here is actively ask questions and be prepared to sit and solve problems. I can't tell you how many times people will just put their head in their fist and just stare at me during the time that I'm reviewing. Hey, if that's the way you want to study, be my guest. But again, no sympathy when you get that problem wrong on the final exam. The people who are actively asking questions and saying, well, how come you didn't multiply both sides by this? Or, oh, can you please do number 16 from the final exam study guide? Because I attempted it 2 times and I got help in the arc and it still is blurry to me. It's still foggy. That's active studying. You are putting yourself out there to make sure you understand the problem. Make sure you know that concept that solves that problem. So again, actively study. Be prepared to ask questions, and you're not going to be prepared to ask questions if you haven't done any of this previous stuff. If you don't have a plan and you don't know what you know and you don't know what you don't know and you haven't studied at all and you're just sitting there thinking, why am I listening to this guy review? I know I'm just going to cram on Sunday. I mean, if you want to live life dangerously like that, again, be my guest, but I do not recommend it. This final exam is not something to be taken lightly. And the final exam is on Monday. It is on Monday, December 7th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. All final exams are 2 hours. So if you show up at 11, you only have 1 hour. All final exam schedules are set, and this is what we have to stick to. Now, I know class starts at 9:30 typically, but if final exam week is scheduled differently, they're block schedules of just 2-hour chunks, so they are staggered a little bit, with half-hour breaks in between, so no final exam for any class can overlap. The thing about this final exam is, and I'll be revealing here, there are 41 questions. If I told you there were 100 questions, I hate the phrase, but tough cookies, there's 100 questions. If I told you there was only 3 questions, then that's it, there's 3 questions. I have created that final exam so that basically all the fat has been trimmed, meaning I'm not asking the same concept twice. Most of those questions on there are designed so that they're testing a different concept. We're not going to have you do a mixture problem for number 1 and then another mixture problem for number 2. There's no point in having to take up all that time during the final exam to check and see if you know a mixture problem, and then to check and see if you know another mixture problem. We've already tested that concept. So the questions have been whittled down to the point where I really cannot ask less questions than that. Otherwise, I would be skipping over complete concepts. So I have to check that you know every concept, and 41 questions is just the spot that we land on. Now, the thing to remember about that final exam is each question is 5 points each, which actually gives you a little bit of wiggle room, because if there's 41 questions and they're 5 points each, there are 205 total points up for grabs, meaning you can actually do better than 100% on the final exam. The final exam is basically designed so that even if you get one question wrong, you still get 100. So it's nice to know you have at least that little bit of cushion. You'll get 100% if you get 40 of the questions right. That's awesome. You'll get 102.5% if you get all 41 questions completely right. So there's actually just a little bit of buffer there. One thing to be aware of is that out of those 41 questions, there are 22 what they call short answer questions. Short answer questions meaning that you're going to have to show your work. That is, I can grade you based on the points. I can give you partial credit based on the work that I see. So those short answer questions are nice, because if you have most of the concept down but you forget how to finish, or you're not 100% sure how to start the problem, but as you work through the problem, I can see that you at least grasp the concept of you know you needed to factor something and solve something. I can see that towards the back end of the problem you had some of the concept down. So I can give partial credit there. I can, and anywhere from 0 to 5 points is allowed. And then the remainder of the questions, the other 19, will just be multiple choice. And those multiple choice questions will be based on A, B, and C, and D. So it's not going to be a multiple choice where it's going to be like, okay, you have choice A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. No, it's just, you have 4 choices, A, B, C, and D. Typically, of those 4 choices, one of them is just really weird and doesn't make total sense. If you can eliminate that, then that narrows your choices down to 3. And then of those 3, there's probably 2 that are pretty close, one of them being right, one of them being wrong. Maybe, like one of them is negative, one of them is positive, for example. So the way you play the game of multiple choice is the points are all or nothing. We're giving you 4 windows. We're narrowing an infinite number of choices that you could do showing your work down to 4 specific choices. So we're giving you that little cushion already. So it's all the points or it's none of the points. There's no partial credit to those. Be careful about that multiple choice. Typically, if you know how to work the problem and choose the correct answer. Trust your first instinct. Lots of people will circle B, and then I'll see them erase it and circle A when the correct answer was B. And I see them that they had it, but they changed their mind, and they get 0 points, where they would have gotten the full 5 points. So trust your gut. Typically, your first guess is your best guess. Typically, not always. But if you can work through the problem, and find that choice that matches. If you see yourself not being able to find a choice that matches, that's when you may want to strategize by either one of 2 things. Find the closest choice and compare it to your work and see if you made a mistake and that set you off course a little bit, and you realize your mistake and say, oh, okay, it was this, which was the close choice, but I just made a little boo-boo here, and if I correct that, it actually gets me to the right choice. Or you may just want to simply, if you look at all 4 choices and none of them make sense to you, you may just want to start that problem over again. Now, you may want to wait till the end of the exam, put a little, check mark or asterisk next to it, finish the rest of the exam, then come back to that question and say, okay, I now have, 10 minutes left, and this is the one question that I'm struggling with, I can't get. At least I know I have 4 choices. Let me try and completely rework it from scratch in the last 10 minutes and see if it gets me somewhere. But worst case scenario, at least just guess. It never fails, but there's always at least one student, when I look at that pile of final exams and as I go through and I grade, there's always one student that for some reason on a multiple choice question didn't even bother to guess, which is just silly. You've got a 25% chance of getting it right, and that student basically said, no thank you, I don't want that 25% chance, please mark this wrong. So again, I don't need to see work on multiple choice. I can't grade work on multiple choice. It's all or nothing. That's the way the department decides. It's like you have a 1 in 4 chance of winning $1 billion in the lottery and you saying, no thank you. But someone saying, well, just guess a number between 1 and 4, 1, 2, 3, or 4. If you guess the correct number, I'll give you $1 billion. And you say, nah, I'm too lazy to guess. Why? I mean, if it were me, I'd just be like, 3. And they say, oh, sorry, you lot. And I go, whatever. No sweat off my back. At least I tried. At least I took one of the guesses. So it wasn't one of the other 3 choices. I didn't get it. Oh, well. But at least I tried. You never know. You might guess the number 1 and they say, congratulations, here's $1 billion. Okay, it's a final exam. It's not really $1 billion. But still, it's just a question that you can take a free choice on. Please don't forget to take that free choice. So, all said and done, main thing is start preparing for the final exam. Yes, it will come up. Sorry, my dog's over here bothering me now. Yes, it will come up very quickly. So don't hesitate. Don't wait to take the final exam. Don't wait to study for the final exam. Study early. Study often. Be honest with yourself. Collect all those materials so that you have them prepared and ready to go. Don't wait till the Sunday before the final exam to find your study guides. go find your study guides, or at least reprint them if you can't find them. That way you're prepared the week before the final exam, and you're able to find the material that you need, and you can at least focus on studying, not wasting time focusing on, where's that thing? Wait, did we have a final exam study guide? Wait, did I ever get my test 2 back? Now you're shooting yourself in the foot there, because you're delaying the inevitable that you have to study. Once you've got all that stuff corrected or collected, and you begin the studying process by coming to the reviews, going to the Academic Resource Center, asking me questions during office hours, just hunkering down in the library and studying. Whatever you're doing, make sure you're being honest and sticking to that schedule of studying. A great way to study is with that final exam review on MyMathLab. I would say take that as if it's like a practice final exam. That practice final exam that's on MyMathLab, that's 47 questions. Once you're comfortable working through those questions in about a 2-hour period, since it's 47, it's a few questions longer, maybe 2.5 or 3 hours. Give yourself some time. It's also MyMathLab, which can be a little tedious. Give yourself some time extra to work through those 47 questions, and you may want to sit there and time yourself. You may want to actually see, hey, am I capable of getting through 47 questions in 2.5 hours? That's a good sign that I can get through 41 questions on a final exam in 2 hours, because it is a strategy. It is something you have to strategize for. There's a time limit on this exam. You have to respect that time limit. I have to respect that time limit. So if it takes you 5 hours to do 40 questions, you need to practice more. You can't sit there during those 2 hours and spend a lot of time just staring at the question, wondering what they're asking. When you study, what you do is you recognize what the problem is, what they're asking you to do, and you do it. Right? You look at it, you read it, that studying kicks in where it says, the brain sends up this signal that says, I know what you just read, and I know what you need, and your brain shoves that information out for you, and your hand just starts going. That means you've studied and you prepared. If you read that math problem, you read that question, and your brain just sits there and goes, you got me, then you have not studied, and your brain cannot go to that file and pull out the proper procedure and give it to your hand to start writing. Your brain just becomes a brick wall at that point, and your brain basically is telling you, you didn't study, so I cannot provide you the solution. I can't even tell you where to start. Don't do that to yourself. So as you take that final exam review on MyMathLab, you'll see if your brain knows what it knows and can spit the information out to you, versus if your brain doesn't know something. And if your brain does not know something, go back and mark that on that syllabus, because when you look on the MyMathLab, the nice thing about that MyMathLab is when you click on a question, it tells you what chapter, what section, and this says sorry, something must have happened. Let's try this again. Here we go. It says, this is the final exam review, question number 10 out of 47. Notice it's coming from chapter 3, section 5, and it looks just like question number 25 from the homework from the textbook. So it's telling you exactly where to go and where to study. 3.5, number 25. Let me go ahead and go back to that thing that I printed out where I highlighted 3.5 that talked about equations of lines. And let me go look at these problems that I'm supposed to know how to do. Let me go look at my notes for 3.5. Let me recall how to solve these types of problems. So connect all those dots that you can. That way, when you get to the final exam, every single dot possible is connected, and your brain's just going to be able to jump real easy and tell you what to do, and then move on to the next problem. If you're not connecting those dots with problems from the homework in the MyMathLab, with problems from each specific section that relates to a concept, with study guide problems, with exam problems, if you're not making those connections, then that's when you read a problem on the final exam and your brain just goes, sorry, dead end, cannot help you. And you don't want your brain to leave you hanging like that. So as far as all the information goes, that's what I've got. You'll notice a lot of this And to wrap it up here in summary here, a lot of people when they give a speech, they say, tell people what you want to say it, and then say it again in conclusion. And that's what I'm going to do here. In conclusion, you'll hear that I've said a lot of things like do not wait, come up with a realistic plan, meaning write it out. Don't just have it in your brain going, I think I'll study on Friday. No, write it down. If you write something down, we as human beings tend to give it more weight and we tend to stick to that commitment. So write it down, print that syllabus out, highlight things that you need to study, check off things that you have studied. It'll help you commit to studying better. Come up with a schedule for yourself. Be honest about it. It's like sort of as if you're like going on a diet for a week. You're going to say, for the next week, I will stick to this diet of mathematics. And if I stick to it, I will see results. It's not going to be something instant. You're not going to see results on day one. A real diet might take, 2 to 6 to 8 weeks, who knows, to actually finally start to see some results because the body's weird like that. But the brain is a lot more adaptive. The brain can change the way it thinks, within a 24-hour period. If you really just sit down and focus on studying, your brain will pick up the message real quick of, oh, my human is telling me I need to know this. And that's what you're doing when you cram. You're basically shoving everything up into your brain, and your brain is reacting hyper fast, saying, okay, I'm just going to try to hold on to everything you give me. But your brain's hands will get full and start to lose stuff within that 24-hour period. If you give your brain more time over the whole week or week and a half, your brain can start collecting things, and then it can basically digest them and start organizing them and go, oh, these two concepts are related. Maybe I'll make a spot for those and put those here. And then your brain goes, oh, I have another free hand. Please study tomorrow and I can do something that you asked me to. And your brain's very adaptive like that. So it's almost like putting your brain on a math diet for a week. Do those final exam reviews, rework old study guides, rework old exams. Just basically, in summary, practice, 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 practice. At this point, cut and dry. You either know it or you don't. And at this point, if you don't know it, you have a limited amount of time to try to learn it. So just keep practicing. The more you practice, the more you will hold on to, the better you will be taking the final exam, the faster you will be solving problems on the final exam. Having more time to solve those questions will relieve stress. If you're working through questions at a gentle pace, you'll realize that you have enough time to get through the final exam. If you're sitting there, erasing a whole bunch and then thinking about things and then flipping through the exam, at that point you're not solving problems. You're spending time just staring at the paper. What you're doing is you're wasting that valuable time to write a solution down that gives you points. That's when your stress level builds up. So don't do that to yourself. All said and done, please make sure you just get a good night's rest on Sunday. Eat a good dinner. Relax on Sunday night. Don't cram till 2 a.m. Sunday night and into Monday morning. Don't do that to yourself. You're better off just going to bed and getting a good night's sleep so that you can come to the exam well rested. Trust me, I've been a college student for a long time, and I've done it, and it doesn't work. It's not helpful. I've stayed up late nights trying to squeeze as much information in. Not with math. I've never done it with math. But I've done it with some other random classes. If you do that to yourself, you'll find yourself during the final exam with your eyes half open going, man, I'm so tired, I just want to get out of here. Your brain shouldn't be thinking those thoughts when it should be 100% full speed math, math, math. If your brain's sitting there thinking about how tired you are, or you have to drink a gallon of coffee just to get going, you're not going to be in a good state of mind to take that exam. So get a good night's rest. You should have already studied by the time Sunday night rolls around, and you should be comfortable. Monday morning, I would recommend just taking some time Monday morning to get a good breakfast in you, sit down for maybe like an hour or so and just practice some of those few problems that you're still a little shaky on. Make sure that you can get through those problems as well as you can, just to make sure that you've warmed up. It's like stretching before exercise. Do a couple problems to stretch out in the morning on Monday, and then give yourself a little break. But from like 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., I would say stop doing math. That hour before the exam, don't do math. Please give yourself some time to actually breathe. People cram all the way up until the very last minute. At 9:59 a.m., they'll still have that study guide out and they'll be asking me questions. And I just look at them and I say, look, I can tell you exactly what you need to know, but you will forget it in the next 10 seconds. It's just going to bounce right off. So you should be done and just relaxed, calm, pencil and calculator in hand, and just ready. Just have that little zen moment to just relax and kind of get yourself in that mode of, okay, I'm going to take a test. I know what I know. There's no reason to stress. It's just a math exam. It's not the end of the world. So if you have any other questions, there's nothing really that I can think of other than this is the game plan. Make sure that you be honest with yourself and study as much as you can. If you have questions throughout the whole we've got like a week and a half until the final exam. If you have questions, please don't be afraid to ask them. The only stupid question is the question you don't ask. There are no other stupid questions. If you have that question, guaranteed someone else in the class has that question. Be the hero. Ask the question, because then that other person is going to go, wow, thank God she asked that question, because I was too embarrassed to ask that question. Well, there's no reason to be. Ask the question, because guaranteed someone else in the classroom also has that question. They're just scared to ask it, but there's no reason to be scared. It's just a math question. You ask the question, you get an answer. Hey, guess what? Now you know it. Now you get 5 more points. Isn't it nicer to get 5 more points by overcoming your fears and asking the question, rather than just saying, well, I don't know it and I won't ask, I'll just get it wrong. That's a dangerous game to play on that final exam, because again, it's worth a lot of points. And I'm going to end with this. Sorry for making the video so long, but just remember, you need to score what is essentially 120 points, or what is a 60%. 120 points out of the 200 points is 60% on the final exam. If you do not hit that mark, you do not pass the class. Even if Canvas says, hey, you have a 50% on the final exam, but your overall score in the class is a 72%, so you get a D. Sorry, I cannot give you that passing grade because you got a 50% on the final. You didn't hit that minimum mark of 60%. So be careful about that. It is important. And I end with that so that hopefully, that makes you think, okay, this guy's serious. There's no reason I really need to make a video like this, but the reason I make this video is because I feel like for this exam, people don't take it seriously. And then they come up to me, they turn in their final exam, and they go, wow, I should have listened to you 2 weeks ago. I didn't study enough. I didn't take it seriously. So hopefully this, pushes a little bit of that stress out of the way sooner and gets you to actually think, man, I guess I really should study if he's being this serious about it. Not that it's an impossible exam or it's a hard exam. It's just the exams that we've been taking throughout the course. You can fail them. That doesn't matter. If you fail them, but you still have enough homework score and enough study guide scores, you could still pass the class as long as you get a 60 or higher on the final. So that stress level hasn't been there before. Now all of a sudden it's there. Also, the exams we've been taking, there's no multiple choice involved, and multiple choice can hurt you because there's no partial credit, whereas you've been used to partial credit for the whole 16 weeks. So that's a different stress level altogether. So knowing that things are going to be a little bit different is going to make the exam a bit more stressful, which means you want to be overly prepared to combat that stress. So keep that in mind. This is a very serious exam. Obviously, it's worth a chunk of your score. It can make or break you. It can lift you up a whole letter grade, or it can pull you down a whole letter grade almost. All right. My dog says, hey, finish up already so we can get out of here. So if you have questions, email me. Please let me know. Stop by my office hours. And if not, I will see you on Monday, and we will get started working through as many problems as we can to be prepared for that final exam. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We'll see you next week.